Hi everyone, my name is Chris Powell. I'm in the HPE Compute Technical Enablement team, and you saw my boss already present. I'm joined here today by
Andrew Elisavetsky, and I'm also part of the Compute Technical Enablement team.
Do you have the same boss?
I do have the same boss.
Yes.
So we work together closely on all of these things that you're about to see.
All right, so we're going to take you through more of a live demonstration of iLO 7, of Compute Ops Management, Touch OneView, and the rest of the portfolio management from a management perspective. We divide up the presenting duties, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm going to take over about halfway once Chris forgets what he's doing, because
that could happen.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right, so I'll grab it then.
Yeah, of course.
Take the first part. So our systems in question here are on the 5th floor of this building, and we run it like a data center. It's not as formal as some data centers. We're not using necessarily retina scans to let access in and out of the doors. However, we try to run it like a data center. We try to keep up with the inventory. We're managing it from our GreenLake platform. And the reason I wanted to open with GreenLake is just to make sure that we're grounded in all of the other services that this platform provides besides the management of the compute systems themselves, right? So you're going to see the data services piece, the Sustainability and Insight Center, which is really that AI story that we're talking about, where we can watch the systems over time and deduce their trends and how much their electricity they're consuming, where you might save things from an operational perspective. There was Ops Ramp. Chris Bradley talked about that briefly. Private cloud, the Aruba piece for networking. But why we're here today is talk about Compute Ops Management, all right? So let me go to Compute Ops Management, and this is a real world thing, right? I want to do a demonstration of the iLO 7 of a brand new Gen 12 server, all right? So I'm going to do a demo, iLO 7, brand new Gen 12 server. And one of the old-fashioned ways is, of course, to have memorized all the IP addresses necessary to connect to wherever inside the environment. But that's the hard way. All right, I have to recall all of that. I have to open up some kind of inventory, something to know where stuff is. We're trying to create an intuitive platform that allows you to quickly identify stuff from an operations perspective so that you could just go to it and do things without having to be trained on the use case of the model. Remember the old days in compiled code, you'd have to actually open the user's guide? Well, this is supposed to be intuitive. You're supposed to be able to just look at it and know what to do next, type of thing, right? So right away, you know, we're looking at this geographic view. And the reason, again, we're doing this is, you know, as you're going to deploy in these edge systems, wouldn't it be neat if you could see all your edges, see all your clusters of computers geographically dispersed in whatever area that you're in, so that you can then drill down on them, click through to them, and start the management process. Again, without having to look into an inventory spreadsheet. That's the idea, right? So in this case, I'm trying to use a Gen 12 server, trying to find one so that I can do this demonstration. So I just go to the list of servers. Again, no user's guide. It's supposed to be intuitively obvious. I'm going to sort by model, all right? And with a little bit of luck, at the top of the list right here, sure enough, there's a couple of Gen 12 servers. So mission accomplished. I knew I had 2 Gen 12 and this 100 servers plus. I needed to go to those Gen 12s. Notice I'm clicking through with the authentication. So we've got it set to click through. And so from the, GreenLake COM, I was able to enter into my data center. And now, as if I was sitting in front of that computer with a little laptop and a NIC plugged into that server directly, I'm right there. Now, granted, if the service operation that I need to do right this second required me to open the chassis and do something inside the computer, I would not be able to do that. I'm physically not there, right? It's over there on the 5th floor, another part of the building, right? But everything else, cycle the power, figure out what's wrong with it, turn it on and off, and all those aspects of it, I can do as if I was sitting in front of it. And one of the first things that you've noticed, especially if you're familiar with our other baseboard management controller, the predecessor to this, iLO 5 and 6, is that solution had grown over time. I've been here the entire time that we introduced iLO. You saw that chart earlier that Darren put up, many of us in the room lived through all of that. I remember the actual stand-up card back in the day. But anyway, the menus had grown over time to expand functionality, and maybe the organization wasn't as clear as what you might do if you did a do-over. Does that make sense? Because you're growing the ecosystem over time, like 2 decades. So finally, with this, we got to rethink it and say, why not lay this stuff out in a manner in which people work? So why in the world are you on this device to begin with? I'm going to throw that out to y'all. Why might you, what's the first use of this device?
Onboarding.
Onboarding. Getting the computer up and running, right? Get an OS on the thing, load it up, put our support, our drivers and firmware support, the rest of the stuff on the computer, onboarding, all right? What's the next reason you're on the front of this computer?
Something's broken.
Something broke, right? Break fix, right? This is a security warnings, but you're in some kind of break fix situation. You have to figure out if it's operating system, hardware, firmware, whatever it might be. And you're going to want to deal with the host and work with that. Another one. Why would you be on that server?
You're on a roll, Tina.
I'll give you a hint.
Install software.
Yes. Yes. The initial deployment of the system, right? Going to the virtual media, mounting the media you might install, and so on and so forth. Another piece. I'll help you out.
Security?
Yeah, you'll be there doing some security aspect of it, probably most likely at the beginning, but you're in here doing things, right? So the point is, again, and then you have the settings, obviously, for the iLO itself. So the point is that we tried to organize this thing so that, again, it's intuitive, doesn't need a user's guide. You know what to do by looking at it. You click on the hyperlinks, things happen, that kind of thing, all right? So with that, I'm going to talk about security real quick, because this was 2 aspects that Cole brought out, okay? And there's a number of different pieces to this, obviously, right? So one of them is the encryption security. So you got to communicate to the baseboard management controller. You have to use some method to connect to it. And what we're going to do is tighten up those connections to make sure that they're secure. All right? So the first thing that we're going to do is make them a little bit more secure than the predecessor. The predecessor 5 and 6 iLOs had a lot of security features in it, but this one goes a little bit further, all right, with this cannot connect to the server except with TLS 1.2 and 1.3, right? So the base, I'm sure they mentioned this, we're engineering security into the product by default. That's one of the engineering design goals, is that the thing be more secure, all right? So right away, connecting on the interface where that iLO is, we're going to cut down all the ports, make sure there's only 3 ways in, and that you have to conform to these security pieces as well to successfully connect. That will make it more secure, obviously, right? So that's not enough. There can be higher levels of security. And for instance, we can move it up a notch to FIPS. And we mentioned this kind of capability when we talked about the launch of the server, right? All of this FIPS 140-3, level 3, right? All this stuff. So you're getting more of this capability as you move forward with making it a more secure connection to use the device, all right? And you're encrypting stuff as you move through this. So the action to make this happen, it's pretty easy. You go to update security state. I'm sorry. You go to update security state, which is where I am. Oh, I have insufficient privileges. You see that? That was cool. I'm in on with the wrong user. See that right there? So I can't change my security state forward. Okay? That's why I have to use the other server. Yeah. But that's the kind of thing. So, and I'm in as a HPE user at GreenLake that's been passed through down to this server, and I have certain capabilities. And one of the ones I don't have is full admin rights, right? So it's good. That's how you lock this stuff up and keep people from flipping things. By the way, as you move forward in the security levels, you reset the iLO. If you go backwards, you have to completely factory reset it, which means you lose the passwords and have to get the toe tag again.
Question, this is the GreenLake
interface, but if you purchase a computer, CapEx, regular, still the same thing, right? I can still use this, or do I have to be an actual GreenLake customer?
So let me distill that a little bit. The astute observation was, that looks a lot like GreenLake. And yes, sir, we're trying to make our interfaces on our management apps look the same. That is not at all GreenLake right now. I'm actually down on a computer connected to its iLO, and I could have got there through GreenLake. That's how I found the machine, but I could have gone straight to it if I knew the IP address. Right? So I'm kind of not GreenLaking right now. I'm on the machine.
We went through COM.
Yes, it's GreenLake. I picked one of the apps, COM, and then COM in. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
it's through COM technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I don't need GreenLake. I can have COM, which
No, our solution stack is GreenLake, which hosts COM, the storage stuff, the Aruba stuff, all that, and then COM. So you're going to take that sub app, and that's what I'm not using the sub app right now. Andrew's going to come up and show it. I'm on the actual individual machine, the iLO itself.
well, I'm just saying, if I have a fleet, if I buy a fleet CapEx, right, I buy it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my control plane will still be, as long as I have it under support, the GreenLake.
Yes, sir. The GreenLake starts it all. All right. Your machines will be individually listed in COM. You'll be able to talk to them through automation, which means through the REST APIs in mass, or one at a time, like I'm doing.
I'm just saying, I don't have to have like one of the specific GreenLake solutions purchased through that vehicle. I can get it through.
Yeah, it's a financial question. I don't.
Yeah. Right. And the financial question, go ahead.
The user account into GreenLake is free. Anybody can have an account and you can get in. The way you use stuff like Compute Ops Management or Aruba Central or
The storage.
storage console is licensing that management app. And then once you have the license, you apply the key to your account, and then you have access to all of the SaaS apps that live within the GreenLake cloud.
Yeah, does that make sense?
If I don't license the management app, I have to directly go to the machine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's correct.
That's the web-based ILO.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually very similar to a lot of other systems where, you know, the cloud connected part is the part you're paying for, where the direct connect part is widely available. And this has been how it is on ProLiant forever. I mean,
we have tiered levels of capability. So you get some base support like text-based consoles, being able to turn the machine on and off, things like that. But when you wanted to start mounting media, get a GUI, you licensed up the level. That's basically what happened. And so what we have is two aggregators of the iLO information, and it's either COM or OneView. OneView is on site management tool. I'm going to show that in the end. And then COM is on the cloud. But they're basically iLO aggregators in a sense. It's showing you all the machines in the OneView. You know what I mean?
And you can also see the KVM from here too. I mean, right?
That's correct.
We didn't actually talk about that.
Actually, that's what Andrew's coming up to do.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do the iLO. Yes, sir. He's going to do the machine itself.
Yeah.
And talk about the ROMs and all the settings from that level and stuff. All right. So let me keep going real quick. So we talked about encryption. The next one I was going to do was basically talk about remote key management. In that we support that. Again, I can't set anything at this point. But you can go into the environment, tell me where the key servers are, right? And use this thing as a method to store those keys, right? And as we move the keys storage onto the secure enclave, we're even more secure at these kinds of certificates and keys, right? All right. Another piece that you worry about is the firmware that you upgrade the systems with. And Cole and the team were talking about secure supply chain. And one of them is you don't want bad rogue firmware to be installed on any of the devices in the system. And there's a ton of programmable stuff in these systems, CPLDs, ROMs, drives, NIC, array controllers, on and on and on. All kinds of stuff, all right? So one of the things that we talk about is that we can scan the firmware on either an on-demand basis or on a regularly occurring basis to see if anything's been messed with. And the reason you have to have this is because we do scan when we turn the computer on, But what if you haven't rebooted the computer in some time? A couple of years. Okay? And if somebody pushed bad stuff on there, how are you going to know? I'll tell you how you know. Regularly scanning your firmware on regular intervals. Because good news, this is x86 stuff. It reads the firmware on post. It's already loaded into memory. If you muck with it, it's not going to reread it until you post. So the idea might be, don't reboot until you scan. Feel good about your life. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of strategies that can be taken in place. Now, what's happening in the technology with our partners in the industry is we're pushing the ability to scan the firmware on the devices down to the devices themselves, in that I can use a protocol, SPDM, to call for the scanning and scan that BIOS on that remote controller card, just like I can with the processor and the other programmable devices that I can scan. All right? So SPDM is really important. We're talking about it a lot to our customers, and a lot of our new NICs, array controllers, and so on can be folded into this such that you would scan them too. Okay? Questions, comments? Make sense?
And you can update this stuff right from there too.
Yes, absolutely. This ecosystem is onboarding or loading the firmware to things to this onboard baseboard management controller, and then applying them into the devices. And what's kind of newish with iLO 7, we've done this for a little while, but anyway, we don't, in the old days, we used to take a giant multi-gigabyte, 8 gigabyte firmware DVD image, ISO, and it had every firmware driver known to HPE, going back 2 decades. No, it wasn't that bad, but it was current machines, but still, it was machines that weren't necessarily the ones you were upgrading. You didn't have all of the devices in our portfolio, so why were we giving you all of the firmware in a distribution? My point is, in the new system, the new ecosystem, we only load up the stuff that belongs to the computer. So right there, you're less vulnerable because you don't load a bunch of excess stuff, and the payloads are smaller. And Mr. Bradley talked about secure gateway, which is again an iLO aggregator technique. In other words, we can put a VM in the data center, have all the iLOs talk to that VM, and that VM can talk to COM, right? So that you don't have all of the iLOs going up to COM. So you can do that, right? And so the secure gateway can act as this buffer or cache, if you will, and you can load the firmware and drivers pertinent to those machines on the secure gateway, and that thing can be the conduit to the iLOs. So we're cognizant of not giving you the whole giant bundle and being smarter about how we're distributing those elements. Make sense? I'm going to bring Andrew up, and he's going to talk about using the computer.
All right, so Chris has given you guys a great example of managing the server directly connected to it, right? We're directly connected to this iLO 7. It's physical hardware that we're now manipulating. So this one server, we're going to continue down that path and try to manage it some more, some things that can't be done within iLO. So we had talked about a little bit before, but we do have a remote console window that we can launch. And new in iLO 7, it actually opens up in a new tab and asks me for a password. So we've booted the server and got into the F9 prompt that you're able to hit to get into the system utilities. We're actually sitting at system help. Let me back out of there. So yeah, we're at the just normal boot up, hit F9, get in here, and you can do some configuration. What are some of the things that you might want to do on your first boot, right? You're going to go in here and maybe configure some settings for iLO. You can configure some settings for your hard drives, your array controllers. And you can also configure things for the server on how you want it to perform. If you want it to be more energy efficient, or maybe you just want raw horsepower, all those types of things can be done in these menus, right? And again, we're just working on one server. This is the same server that Chris was showing a second ago. So we can go in here and go into the system configuration, head into the RBSU. And this has not really changed too much for iLO 6, previous Gen 11, Gen 10 plus. But we have our predefined workload profiles that we've set up already. And you're able to read more about those. We have, long definitions for what each one is actually changing. But this will help you get kind of the performance that you want without you having to know all the little dials and turns and switches and knobs that are within this system that you may not know if you need those or not, right? So that just kind of helps a lot of people out. So for this example, I can change it to just something like virtualization, max performance, and it's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's going to change a bunch of other options. It's like, yeah, sure. We know we want that. We use that all the time.
Are they only those presets available, or can you have your own goal configurations that are added to that list?
So there is a custom configuration for sure. Down at the bottom, there's a custom. And when you go to that guy, it's going to enable you to just go in and set, the one option that you needed or the 50 different options that that, you've tested and can confirm that that's what you need.
Is there a way to add that as a profile?
To add the custom one as a profile, it will.
I know I'm going to do like 30 of these, or every time.
Oh, you mean more than one custom?
Yeah.
I don't believe there is a way currently. Yep.
So custom is universal through my iLO infrastructure, because I think she's headed on to that super important piece. If I have 5 settings that I need to change in the BIOS across 100 machines, well, I don't want to.
That you're going to have. So the way we're showing you right now, you would go to the iLO and change those 5 settings manually on all of those machines.
Okay.
This is managing one server.
Okay.
And then I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to jump back over to COM where I'll show you how to manage what you're talking about, more than one server or 100 servers at a time.
Yeah, there are times when you want to manage just one server,
Right.
but not as often when you have a whole fleet of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you only have bought one new server at the edge and you just need to set that one guy up, well, you could do it this way. But there's more than one way to do things, and we've automated that to make it a little bit easier with COM. So I just wanted to show you the hard way to do it first, and then we're going to go to the easy way.
He's making it hard.
Well,
The manual way. I'm sorry.
Easy way.
The manual way.
It's easier than the hard way.
Okay.
he's got to make it hurt first, then he's got to.
Sometimes you got to boot the thing and look at the screen and type things. And
Well, that's what I was just thinking about. I was thinking about hugging that server earlier.
Oh my goodness, you've gotten too attached already.
Did you give your server a name?
So other things that we can configure within this menu are things like an array controller. So for example, you could just go right into your array controller, configure your arrays, create different types of storage arrays, whether you want a RAID 1, RAID 10, RAID 0, if you're feeling like you're not going to lose any data. But yeah, this is where you would do all these things. And like you said, you would have to do this on every single server that you were setting up if you went this route, right? So Compute Ops Management, we're here at the actual server. This is all the information, and it's pulling all its information from iLO. And one of the things that we were just showing that we could do in the RBSU is, change a workload profile. We have that either that custom one that we've saved or a specific one that we know we want to use. We can do that and add that to multiple servers. And there's a special little way that you can do that within COM. So to do that, we just go over to the Manage tab, go over to our server settings, and you'll see that there's quite a few BIOS workload profiles already populated. And these are the predefined ones that were already in the RBSU. So we can find the one that we were wanting to use, and or we can just create a new setting if there isn't one that already meets our needs, right? So what kind of settings could we create other than a workload profile? There's actually a few. So if we drop down this category, you'll be able to see all the different things that you can actually create a server setting for. And this is going to be kind of like a profile that we can apply to groups of servers. So for example, let's look at the internal storage of the server, right? We want to set some type of array that we know all the servers that we're going to deploy under this group are going to use the same storage configuration. So we can go over here and select, server internal storage. I'll call this tech field day storage setting.
You have no idea how much of an inside joke what you just posted is. Field day storage.
All right. So once you get to here, it allows you to do all the configuration that you would normally find to configure your arrays, right? Go in here and select whatever RAID level, whether you wanted to use the entire disk, how many drives you're going to allocate to this array, and so on, right? Once you have that saved, so I'll just do a quick one, right? Save it. We have our profile that we created, and it's saving the setting, and it has the name that we created. And now, so how do we get that on 10, 15, 100 servers, or just one server from COM? And that's actually a pretty easy way to do that. So you just go back over to your manage, and you can create a group. So groups are the things that you apply the server settings to, and then you can put servers into the group, and they will get all of those settings applied to them. So we can create a group, tech field day group. And what type of group is it? Well, this is going to be a server group. So it's asking us, so what type of settings do we want to apply to this group? Right? So first off, it asks us for a firmware server setting. So one of the settings that we could have set beforehand was a server setting or firmware. So whether we want it to get the latest and greatest updates, if we want it to stop at a certain level, depending on what servers we are in this group, whether this is, a development or production group, we can allocate, which firmwares we want to go where. So for this one, I'm just going to do this monthly demo SPP setting that we have. Our internal storage setting is the one that we just created, our tech field day storage setting. BIOS server settings. So these are the predefined workloads that we were just looking at when we were in the RBSU. We're going to go ahead and choose one of these. Virtualization max performance was what I was wanting. You even have the option to select an operating system image. If you have an operating system image host somewhere that just storing a repository that's storing all those images, you can add that here. Also, choose your iLO server settings enabled for security, definitely. And we don't have any external storage connected to this server, so we'll just skip that part. Click next. There are some policies that you can have it downgrade all the firmware to, whatever your baseline that you set so that everybody's on an equal set of firmware. You can also have it automatically apply those firmware baselines for you so that you're always at that level, right? So we can say automatically apply that. And there's a button that says power off server after update. I don't want to do that. So next, we have our internal storage configuration policies. We'll go through that a little bit. We can just say, hey, I want to auto create these volumes. It's going to do this. We can edit the volume name if we want, but for this example, there's no need to do that. And we have our BIOS setting. This is going to be the max performance. If there's anything that we need to do, we can just click down here that says automatically apply it. Next, we can auto apply the security settings. And you can automatically add servers based on tags. This is an optional part, but we're not going to worry about doing that. And we'll finish and create our group. So we now have a server group that doesn't have any servers in it, right? 0 devices. But what I want to do is I want to add that Gen 12 server that we were just playing with into it and show you how easy that is to do, or we could grab a whole bunch of servers and stick them into this group. And as soon as we do that, all those automatically applied buttons that we have pressed are going to take into effect. It's going to flash that firmware. It's going to change the BIOS workload profile and create the array that we asked it to. If we go back over to our servers list, find our Gen 12 server, and for fun, we're going to throw a few other Gen 10 pluses in there with it. We have those selected. We go over to our actions button, and we can do a bunch of things here. Obviously, power them on, reset them, cold boot them, update all their firmware if we wanted to do that manually. But we can also add them to the group that we just created. So we go say add to group. It should give us a little list of the groups that we currently have. We're going to go to the Tech Field Day group, add it to the group, and one server cannot be added because it's part of another group. Huh. What are the chances? That's okay. We'll go ahead and add it. And we just added those servers to that group. That's all magic, right? You don't even know what's happening behind the scenes. But right now, those servers are actually getting reconfigured. The BIOS workload's being changed, arrays getting created, and all those different things are happening behind the scenes.
You said that there was one that it was already attached to, right?
Yep.
Does that get configured then, or does that stay as it is?
No, that one will stay in its group and get the same profiles, whatever were in there. So in order to get it out, you need to remove it from the group first, and then you can add it into another group.
So you baseline every group for a specific profile.
Exactly, and for different reasons, right?
For different use cases.
Yeah, exactly. So if we have a prod environment, before we push out the latest and greatest firmware, we run that on our dev environment first, our groups that we have, and make sure everything's good. If there's something, different that we don't like, maybe we hold off on that before we push it out to prod.
What about reversibility? Is there like a standby image in case of like something goes bad?
So there's always a few current SPPs available that you can pull a baseline from, and you can downgrade, yes.
Yeah. Like Heartblade back in the day, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then I might have missed this. You might have mentioned it. Are these settings made pending reboot, or is it a the systems have to be in a non-booted state?
They're going to need to be rebooted for those things to happen in the BIOS for sure.
Right. But they'll be pending.
It'll be pending until it's rebooted, or you can actually force it to be rebooted during those steps, right? You can have it say that automatically apply the update part. That's what it's going to do. It's, as soon as you add it into
Chaos Monkey.
Yeah, I personally prefer to just use the cold boot feature as soon as I perform it, regardless of what's running on the server.
Who cares?
It helps.
And you can literally cold boot that entire group, right? You can just select the group, click the little button, and say
for like a whole data center, because that'd be fun.
yeah, I don't want to see the power blip that happens when that happens.
So, basic question. This is all great. Terraform, Ansible, the like. Are there, providers for this in any of those for infrastructure as code, for idempotent settings, or do I have to do this?
No, you don't have to actually use the UI. Obviously, you can script against this.
Scripting, yeah, but are there providers for the automation, for the infrastructure as code, idempotent, state setting kind of tools?
I bought Morpheus. Are you leveraging Morpheus?
Yes. I'm not sure I have the right answer.
Tell me the declarative stuff, right? I make my thing look like this, as because obviously, it's very unlikely, as much as you guys would love it, that the whole place is going to be HPE, right? So
with the ops ramp part is kind of, I think, is where you're trying to go. Is like, are we able to do all this with other?
Will this participate in, if I've got a customer that has
multiple,
maybe he's got, some storage from another vendor, or he's got whatever, Cisco networking, and they decide they're going to use Terraform or Ansible or these other things. That's how they're going to run their environment. But this is all to manage the HPE fleet would be great. Is there a provider from Terraform or Ansible to participate in that?
Yeah, or even if I just have infrastructure code, it comes up to how do I do profile lifecycle management if I want to do Git repositories, etc.
Yeah.
To just manage you're giving me the ability to manage it. Yeah, to even manage the script. So how do I manage the state of my
right? It said
my code for this.
Instead of do this, make it like this, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways that we attack that particular question or that opportunity for automation. The first one is obviously with tools built into GreenLake, such as Morpheus or OpsRamp. However, a kind of a community-driven approach of creating integration points. I think of something I mentioned a bit earlier is the brand new PowerShell commandlet library. It interfaces directly into Compute Ops Management. That ecosystem continues to build out. So there are a number of entry points, but what's core to all of that is basically an API with published, a published API that can be leveraged by those integration points.
Right. So I mean, it comes down to just are there community based? Are they publicly available, or perhaps maybe third party adapters, or are you developing? Because it's difference between imperative versus declarative, right? I mean, this is all imperative, and imperative, you're doing something when there's a human in the loop like that, right? There's no the testing is different. There's a lot more errors. You can click on the wrong thing. Maybe your browser doesn't, there's some error, right? When it's declarative, it's make it like this, and it's just, it doesn't stop till it gets like that, or it, returns. It's just a different world, and a lot of people, a lot of customers, especially of scale, have moved to that, whether Terraform or Ansible or the like, right? So I'm kind of surprised that I wouldn't be surprised if some third-party HPE consumer has written an open source, adapter using your APIs, right? If you've got APIs, it's doable, right? So I'm surprised that if it's not available. I was just thinking, is it available from a third party? Are you guys working on it? Is there talk about it?
Have these conversations all the time.
Okay.
And that is really the catalyst that brings out the PowerShell commandlets and other tools. I think the ecosystem's growing from different language bindings and or tool sets, so it would not surprise me if Terraform's on the horizon.
Or even for following up that, is there like an etcd configuration drift management? I mean, because once you get to these profiles, what if you go to SKU, right? Declarative is one thing, but
configuration SKU is Andrew's middle name. I don't know.
Oh, your mom was really strange.
No, so yeah, definitely COM. That's really what COM is for, right? It's going to be able to tell you all those things, like if you have certain things that are out of the baseline, if things are out of place, and you want to get those all back to where they need to be, you can definitely have that kind of automated for you, right? You don't need to take that action for you to manually go in there and update the one guy that's out of date, or the other one that has this weird delta, right? It's going to take care of that for you by managing with those groups.
Over the years, we have been working on data center management for a long time. And we believe that we've really got the on-site management solution thing at a very mature and we think a very good product. It's called OneView. The product ships as the primary control plane or control software, if you will, for a solution product portfolio of ours called Synergy. And we get asked all the time, gee, all this COM stuff seems so new and fantastic. I guess you'll be turning off that Synergy stuff, right? And OneView stuff, right? And the answer is no. No, we just announced Gen 12 for Synergy, and there's other things on the roadmap. And so we're committed to that platform, and that platform is managed by OneView. Many of our customers think the cloud management strategy is awesome. They might be able to move to it over time, but they use a very robust on-site, in-house sometimes, but on-site management strategy, and they still expect us to support OneView for a while, because that's what they're going to use, and they're not going to go to COM right away. Okay, so we're still going to have OneView in the portfolio. You all remember OneView, right?
I thought it was the thing until
it is the thing. Keith, come on. It's still the thing. And in fact, we can find it here in COM. I can go to servers and support, look for them. Here's my synergies right here. And I think I can click through to this. I'm going to try this one right here. All right. And there's my appliance, and I should be able to launch this thing. All right. So right away, y'all noticed that the iLO 7 looks a lot like GreenLake and COM, and that does not. As this is the previous interface that we did, and we've moved to a more modern one for COM and for that development environment, right? So this is the environment that you still, you have your servers and you create your server profile configurations, standard settings. It has all of the robust settings that you saw just a minute ago, because again, it mines iLO for everything you can do to the computer. And then you take all that stuff, put them into what's called a template, and then apply the template to the servers. They configure that as a profile, and that's how you replicate settings out.
So I'm not as up to date as my peers are on this. So if I'm not up to date, I'm sure some of the folks watching isn't. When did OneView get kind of subsumed by COM? I've never even heard of it, quite frankly.
So it's not.
Because I live in this. I live in
Right.
OneView.
Right. And that's because
for my Elytra storage and all of that, between GreenLake and OneView for my deep data insights, I come here.
Right. And the strategy on OneView was you installed it yourself inside the data center on an ESX cluster. And then that thing probably sat next to other management apps in the data center. So maybe vCenter's on that thing, right? And other stuff. And every time I rev this, which was a couple, 3 times a year, I'd let you know that you ought to come in here and add this functionality to pick up new server support or whatever the heck it is that we're doing in here. And you'd say, yeah, that sounds awesome, HPE. I should really get to that. And within a year or 18 months, you might roll out that change to this. So you've taken it on yourself to keep the thing up and running, to keep it current, to maintain that clustered infrastructure to run it. We thank you for that. It scales to 2,500 devices. We've recently made it more than that, but that was kind of our initial scaling measure. So if you're in a large data center, you ended up with what we called OneView islands. OneView for this, and oh, by the way, OneView for ProLiant DLs and so on, MLs and so on is not the same as the one for Synergy. So Synergy OneView doesn't run the ProLiants, and ProLiant OneView doesn't run the Synergy. So you have to add 2 for each one.
So it's 2 views.
It was, yeah, two views. Let's not be open with those views. Just kidding. Let's see if anybody's awake still in the afternoon. And nobody was. So
Oh, we got it.
Ba-doom-boom.
We got
All
it.
right. So anyway, yeah. So that's the model, the scalability, how fast we can update it, right? Taking away your need to provide that clustered server environment to support it. Can we make the workload yourselves of managing the environment less for the customer? And so it's not a replacement because you need both. What if you're a government data center? You're not going to go up to COM. We hear about that all the time. No, we're not going to put our machines on the internet, blah, blah, blah. They got to be, you know what I mean? So you have to have an on-site management solution. And many things still run that way with some kind of VM. So I mentioned the COM gateway, secure gateway that we just came up with. That's a little VM that would run on your ESX host. That's to keep all the iLOs from having to be plumbed out to the internet. They can talk to the gateway, and the gateway can go out to the internet. Stuff like that. Right? So there's going to be an on-site strategy. There's going to be a cloud strategy. And we think many customers are going to do both. Right? Maybe the data center's got some OneView, they're doing COM out in remote sites, and then they're growing to one or the other solution, depending on what their needs are. So.
A little aside, you can deploy the gateway in the field as well. I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could. Absolutely.
Deploy the gateway anywhere. That's
anywhere you got an ESX.
the value of that. Yeah.
Got to have an ES. It's a VM.
Can you deploy the gateway and install OneView on the gateway so that
No.
Keith can?
The ESX host that the gateway has got a little VM running on. Right next to it could be a OneView. Right next to it could be vCenter.
Yeah.
It's just a, you know what I mean? It's a single function little VM. So anyway, the point is that this world really does count, as you can imagine. Yeah, it's, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily the newest thing, you know what I mean? With the buzz and all that. But boys, I like to call it bread and butter. Because, you know what I mean? That's what you run your data centers on mostly right now. Anyway, All right.
Well,
So
for the customers who are trying to get out of the data center, they want to add the service. I think this can be leveraged, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
MSPs can use that. What have you.
Oh, yes, and COM. COM's got an inherent managed service provider construct where you can sign up and subdivide the workspaces for, what I mean? An MSP can take the top one and subdivide the lower ones. Yeah.
That'd be your different
So
vendors inside the
yeah.
same rack, right?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think that's the content I had. We do have 11 minutes left that we'd like to leave that open for Mr. Schaefer to answer any questions. Scott? Sorry, dude. There's a bus that was coming down the road. Anyway, please.
So let's talk a little bit about Lifecycle, because at the end of the day, this is where the value is as customers are trying to figure out, and especially as we bring more of these beasts of machines in with GPUs, how are you helping us figure out how to manage our life cycle? Because that's the challenge. I can only depreciate, or I can't even depreciate GPU hardware anymore because NVIDIA's life cycling this stuff out every 18 months. And I am the speed of refresh is just something I can't keep up with.
You don't have to keep up with the Joneses. No, but that's a good point.
So, obviously there's higher level IT service management tools that we can plug into. We do have the REST interfaces that makes us quite programmable. So depending on your lifecycle management strategy and tools, we sell them in OpsRamp and other things. And we provide our ability to plug into them. A good example is plugging in a vCenter capability. If you want to run out of vCenter, you can drive our environment quite a bit, COM, the iLOs, and so on. So I would say that for a small consultative fee, HPE Services would love to come out, sit down with you, and organize and talk about rolling out a lifecycle management strategy that we would help you with for the next decade, because that's how we keep in business.
I was about to say,
okay, so
I'm throwing out my GPU in 18 months.
Yeah,
really.
But we seriously have consultative selling motion and that kind of aspect in our services organization that completely focus on lifecycle management. And we publish a ton of supporting white papers, content, and so on. How do you want to say something on that?
So, Keith, were you specifically talking about GPUs though, or I thought maybe you were speaking more generally.
So, generally speaking, whenever I was in charge of a hardware set, the stuff moved faster, even pre-GPU, it moved faster than I would like, because my people can only get up to speed so quickly. My people can only pull out servers so quickly. And my app team was never ready to deploy a new app on any platform, let alone be of any assistance, period. So any optimization I can get in the whole lifecycle pipeline, whether it's being able to take settings from my, believe it or not, there's still a lot of iLO Gen 5 out there.
Oh, yeah.
Taking that stuff, translating it into iLO 7, and helping me with the engineering effort to get to a just operational functionality of migration is helpful.
Yeah, and I think I was saying, right, one of the benefits of Computer Ops Management, COM is really providing that management experience across the generations. So you don't have to throw out your Gen 10s if you don't want to. It will still manage them.
Oh, I don't. I still have them.
Yeah.
And now at some point you should, though, because they're consuming more power than the value you're getting from the workload.
Somebody else's. That's somebody else's
budget. But still over time.
Yeah.
But right, but yeah, that's how we're thinking about the problem, is that customers will have a mix of generations of systems, and we want to provide as common an experience as we can. Of course, some capability is only available from the latest generation, but that's okay.
Yeah, so it would be interesting to see, like, and And even from a capability perspective, like you mentioned power is, I don't necessarily expect to get power out of iLO. Maybe I do, I don't know. But one of the things that helps justify upgrades is being able to say, oh, this group of Gen 10 servers compared to if I had a group of Gen 11 servers, here's the changes I can make at the iLO level that will make me more efficient and my environment more efficient, so I can justify going from Gen 10 to Gen 11, whether it's cost of operating the systems from a power perspective, or even man hours that I've spent on firmware upgrades, and this ability to do things that I can do in Gen 11 that I can't do in Gen 10, that I can now report on in my environment to take to my manager, who's typically me, to justify the upgrade.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback. And
we were going to show the sustainability on GreenLake.
Yeah, and but it's interesting that you'd say you weren't expecting to get power out of iLO, and you should.
Yeah, right.
And that's one of the things that, again, iLOs individually and COM and aggregate is pulling together so that you have that view of how much energy you're consuming. Now, we're approaching this through the lens of sustainability. Now, appreciate that some people, like especially in North America, that hasn't been a major concern. But in some other parts of the world, Europe, it's a significant concern. And so we've been working on providing the visibility into what your energy consumption is, so that you can collect that data, turn that into your carbon footprint if that's what you need to do. We actually make it really easy to turn it into the carbon footprint right in the tool, so that you can include that in any of your, if a customer has to produce a sustainability report, for example, then we have that data right here. So for example, you can have your carbon emissions. So we calculated that based on the amount of your energy consumption, your actuals, and we turn that into this sustainability report.
Can we go talk a little bit about the other part of the lifecycle management is not these types of devices, which are the edge devices, right? And fleet management in the edge. So a lot of what you do in traditional data center, you have a single or a few locations of a very large fleet of machines. And the edge is the exact opposite. You have
one or two.
Many locations. You could have 1,000 locations, each of which has one or two.
One node, right? Absolutely.
So it's a different way of looking at it, a different way of thinking about it, managing it. And one of the challenges in that environment is bootstrapping. How do I get my systems out to those many locations? Do you have, or have you thought about a way to do that where I don't have to buy a bunch of machines, have them shipped to a central location, configure them, and then ship them out?
Yeah.
Where in fact I can ship them. I can tell you, build, ship to 14 locations, 100 locations.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things we were kind of showing here is that you can deploy the server, connect it onboards into COM, but deploy the server at the end location, at the edge.
Right.
It onboards to COM, and then you can say, okay, I want you to deploy this image to it and get it up and running. In fact, we actually worked with a customer to build a solution where that's all automated. So as the servers come online, it automatically gets their OS deployed and their application stacks, and there's no manual intervention required. It's just go in, cable it up, power it on, it connects to their network, and off they go.
Yeah, Andrew showed it was a setting. One of the server settings was the boot OS deployment.
Well, yeah, and I'm even thinking, so a lot of the situation is, I'm gonna say deploy to 100 retail locations, right? I'm now redoing my thing. I'm gonna deploy to 100 different retail locations. Now, how do I go and say maybe I don't have a DHCP server at that location, right? I have nothing other than the previous box there had a fixed IP address, right? And I want to ship a box to that location that gets that. Right. So I don't have, all I have is a guy who's going to put it in,
right.
Tell him, put it in, plug it in, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
Walk away. Right.
And the lobby secretary.
Right. So at some point there, I mean, this is what we worked with this other customer, right? At some point you have to start making some security trade-offs.
Right.
You have to decide what you're comfortable with, right? If you're comfortable with the server automatically doing some things that would bypass security, then you can do that. may not advocate for that, but I appreciate the challenge because, as you just said, I don't want to have anybody knowledgeable out at the other end.
Well, it's not so much that I don't want to have anybody knowledgeable. It's I don't.
Or you don't.
I don't have those people. I'm particularly in a retail location. That box is going to be shipped to the store manager. That box lives in the store manager's office, and what you say is, take the old box, unplug it, put the new box in, put the old box into the shipping box, ship it back.
This is the set of trade-offs you have to decide because, yeah, absolutely. And what we think is that for some customers for which security is paramount, then what you should do is you should ship them to a central location where one person can configure the security, trusted, set it all up, and then you deploy it to the end where nobody knows anything. They just plug it in and go. But if security is not paramount for you and you want to be able to just ship a box directly from us, it comes right out of our factory, goes right to the edge location where nobody knows anything, but you want to plug it in, we can do that too.
Okay.
Because we can set the IP in the factory.
Right. So that was sort of where I was leading to is that's a really useful facility service where I can basically say, hey, I need a box. HP, can you just ship it there? Because for you to ship it to me to do something with it and to ship it off to the location, that's time, money, effort, people that I don't need to do. If I can just say, hey, we can this IP address, we can ship it out.
We can pre-configure it before it goes to that end location, and then it connects up, and you're ready to go.
Is HP Composer as a service?
Yeah.
What we're doing here?
Kinda.
You're gonna boot up and you're gonna MAC address advertise across an IP link, and then you're gonna be able to download Composer component functionality.
Well, yeah, you're gonna be able to connect it up.
Right.
That's really a key for the edge type, and I choose retail because it's odd people understand it, but it's all the different types of things where you have. Like I said, it's the inverse relationship where you have a huge number of locations with a very small number of devices.
And that's one of the big benefits of COM, right? Our whole point of that is that before if you had OneView and that was all we had, you somehow have to put a OneView at every single retail location, right? It's just ridiculous, right? It makes no sense. So instead it's, no, I want one cloud-based management solution where all of my individual nodes connect back to it. And I don't have to manage the infrastructure. I don't have to do anything. Right. It automatically manages my 1,000 remote locations exactly as if they were in a data center. In fact, I defy you to know the difference when you're using the tool, if it's local or remote, other than the map tells you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very important. Yep.